The Wii U won its console generation. Not only did it win, it won so hard where this is a console that has several of the best games ever made. And obviously, we talk a lot about Star Fox Zero and Breath of the Wild on this channel. This is nothing new for me, but this is actually the first time I've gone back to the Wonderful 101 in a while, ever since I first beat the Switch version a while ago. This is the first time I've played the game fresh since it first came out. And I'm going through everything again. I'm unlocking it. I'm unlocking things. I have to go through like that learning curve of relearning the game so I can use the simpler moves before I unlock the more complex moves. And it really dawned on me that not only is this one of the best action games ever made, this is one of my favorite games ever, period. And not by an insignificant margin. I really think I like this game quite a bit more than something like Breath of the Wild, than something like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, more than like pretty much any other game I can think of on the Switch 1 or the Switch 2. Like, even the old, like, all-time Super Nintendo classics, like Super Metroid, like A Link to the Past, like DKC, I don't think I like as much as this, because I can't think of any game that's as endlessly rewarding and fun to play, unique, creative, and fun than this. Like you can't really come up with anything that's as intense or complex as this. Like, in any genre, in any on any console from any developer, nothing quite hits the mark like this does. And a big reason for that is because this is such a weird esoteric thing, where it is an action game that utilizes a really unique control scheme that's very much unlike anything else in its genre. It's very simple on the surface, but like actually getting into it and actually utilizing it to its fullest capacity, it has an insanely high skill ceiling. And in a lot of ways, beating the game is only the beginning. I feel like that's one of the really interesting things about this, is that like no matter how many times I beat the game, it feels like there's always more things to do, more challenges to find, more unlockables to unlock, more missions you can platinum or pure platinum, right? Like, the game is endlessly entertaining in a way that I don't think any other game has ever managed. On top of that, when you look at like the more superficial elements, when you look at the visual design, which is spectacular, when you look at the cutscene direction, when you look at the writing especially, the story in this is actually one of the best stories in any video game ever. The greatest superhero story ever told. Like, this is so far beyond, I think, what any other video game is capable of, that it's hard to believe that like it even got made, let alone like, was a Nintendo Wii U exclusive. But I think this game, more than any other, kind of indicates like the issues with the Wii U generation and the problems that we're seeing now as a community and in gamer culture, is that the general public, the masses, simply don't want good video games. They don't want games like that are unique, that are fresh, that are original, that are exciting, that are unlike anything else that exists. They want the same generic slop that's available on all their platforms. When this game came out, and had to go head to head with Grand Theft Auto 5, it was the better game. It was the more enjoyable game. It's something that players put more time into than Grand Theft Auto 5. It had a better story than Grand Theft Auto 5. It looked better than Grand Theft Auto 5. It ran better than Grand Theft Auto 5. But the normies flocked to Grand Theft Auto 5 because it was the game that everyone else was playing. And that was the issue. That's the problem with things like this, is that inevitably good, creative, innovative projects get buried under the fact that like all anybody wants to do is just run around and shoot people in GTA. They don't really engage with games enough at a high enough level to really understand why this game was way better than anything Rockstar will ever put out in their careers. But the belief at the time was that Grand Theft Auto would destroy Nintendo, that Nintendo would go bankrupt without Rockstar and the other third parties, and that normies would just ignore Nintendo consoles forever. And when the Switch came out and slowly started proving that assumption wrong, when Grand Theft Auto spent an entire decade not being relevant, while Nintendo put out banger after banger, several games of which were far more successful and popular than Grand Theft Auto 5 ever was, like what we have seen is just the slow, gradual decline of this idea that niche games have no place and that they can't really compete. We are seeing like more stuff like this do reasonably well today. Like the Wonderful 101 really was a victim of bad timing. Not only did it launch on the Wii U, it also launched during a period where normies were most invested in gaming, where they were desperate for validation, where they desperately wanted games that catered to their like specific requirements and their specific needs and their wants, like basically GTA, right? They wanted the most normie friendly experience imaginable. Something like something like the Wonderful 101 would never have done well in that environment. But these days, where stuff like this is more widely appreciated and celebrated, it might have done quite a lot better. This generation, we're not getting games nearly as esoteric as the Wonderful 101, but I would argue games like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book and Donkey Kong Bonanza are actually pretty close, where they do have a lot of the same things that made the Wonderful 101 appealing, that they do a lot to like kind of subvert the established formula, to do new and interesting things with it, to rethink the brand, and people are starting to accept it. And what's happening now is that we're getting a new Grand Theft Auto 6 game this year, right? Coming November. And the overwhelming narrative has been that Nintendo is doomed, that nobody's going to release games around this period, that no one's going to sell anything, that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to dominate. In reality, we're getting Ocarina of Time. We're getting like Nintendo Switch Sports, we're getting Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, right? We're getting like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Definitive Edition, right, in December, right? And we're going to get a lot of other games in the first half of next year as well. Like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to come and then it's going to go. Like, this is the end result of the Wonderful 101 losing to Grand Theft Auto 5. This is the death of a thousand cuts, is that it did not stop with the Wonderful 101. Wii U owners were bombarded with games better than Grand Theft Auto 5 after the Wonderful 101 came out. All the while Grand Theft Auto fans were just sitting there waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, oh man, when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, that's when this PlayStation 5 Pro purchase is going to be validated. I can't wait to mod this on my gaming PC. Like, that was the mindset of the community at the time. And we are seeing, going into Grand Theft Auto 6, like just how much skepticism there is that this game is going to live up to the hype, because everyone's gone through this process before. We went through it with Cyberpunk, we went through it with like Red Dead 2, we went through it with Starfield and like The Last of Us Part 2. We went through this with like dozens and dozens of these absolute bottom of the barrel slop game experiences. At the end of the day, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be a generic AAA game, no different than Grand Theft Auto 5, while something like the Wonderful 101 will stand the test of time forever as something that is the absolute apex of its genre, something that really has no peer at what it sets out to do. Like, the reality is the Wonderful 101 is truly one of a kind, while GTA 6 is one of the most generic, uninspired games imaginable. Nintendo and the Wonderful 101 beat Grand Theft Auto because in the long term, games like the Wonderful 101 continued to be produced while Rockstar just languished for a decade, grifting off of Grand Theft Auto 5 shark cards and not truly innovating or producing anything new. Anyone who says that Red Dead 2 was relevant or successful is just completely delusional, because that game had a failed online mode that did not live up to Grand Theft Auto 5. And when you take into consideration just how the only reason Grand Theft Auto 5 was successful as it was because of the online features. You really start to understand the precarious position that Rockstar is in, where they spend over a decade producing their games in these two franchises that are only relevant because they are seen as like the biggest entries in their respective niches, right? You look at Rockstar and how long it takes them to put out games and how desperate people are for them to be good and how much like damage control they do for them to act like they're good. Like when you look at like Rockstar and then you look at Nintendo, where like we're getting cool new things like every month, every couple of weeks, I think, in some cases. Like when you look at what Nintendo is doing, when you look at like the reality, when you look at like the situation we're in, like the difference is palpable. We are legit going into November 2026 under the assumption that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be competing with Ocarina of Time. And the naive thing would be to believe that like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to destroy it, that it's going to be a way more successful title, it's going to make more money, which is technically true. But when you take into consideration that Ocarina of Time is a remake of like an almost 30-year-old game, you start to see like the real picture here, where you start to realize that Nintendo games hold their value for decades. All the while they keep putting out new stuff constantly. Like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to make a ton of money and then it's going to peter out. And then by the next one, it's either going to be more of the same or there's going to be a massive decline. Meanwhile, Nintendo is putting out the Ocarina of Time remake after the excellent Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, after the excellent Echoes of Wisdom, after the excellent Tears of the Kingdom, all of which have come out in the past 3 years, by the way. These amazing games are stopping everything that Grand Theft Auto has accomplished in its entire history. And the fact that like Nintendo is going to release a remake, have it do reasonably well, and then inevitably put out a new Zelda game, probably next year, is something that really should be studied. Grand Theft Auto is a failing brand. It couldn't destroy Nintendo when Grand Theft Auto 5 went up against the Wonderful 101, and it's not going to destroy Nintendo now that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going up against Ocarina of Time Remake. Okay, how bad is it going to be when Grand Theft Auto 7 comes out? I imagine by that point, Nintendo will have an IP that sells more than Grand Theft Auto. Like Animal Crossing, I think, is already pretty much there. Outside of the illusion of higher sales numbers and critical appeal and mainstream recognition, Grand Theft Auto really is not on the same level as any Nintendo IP. There are several Nintendo franchises that are far more popular than it now. Grand Theft Auto only coasts by because of the wanted system and because of just how degenerate American culture is. Like, this is a series that really should not have any place in any civilized society. And that is something that I hope will become mainstream in the near future. Just like how rap music out of nowhere suddenly became cringe after 2020. Like, I think Grand Theft Auto is kind of headed down the same path where we are seeing an end to like the worship and glamorization of criminals. Nobody wants to watch or play a game about criminals. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to come out, people are going to play it, and they're going to realize really quickly that, like, oh, this is kind of boring. And they're going to go back to Animal Crossing. They're going to go back to Fire Emblem. They're going to play Xenoblade for the first time. They're going to discover all the dozens of games like the Wonderful 101 that are far better than anything that Grand Theft Auto 6 has ever produced. And if they don't do that, they're cattle and don't have the capacity to really argue with people who do. Like, that is the problem that the Grand Theft Auto community faces, is that they are entirely reliant on this idea that Grand Theft Auto is the biggest, most profitable brand in gaming. And once that no longer is true, or people are able to prove that it's never been true, the entire cope will entirely collapse. The idea that Grand Theft Auto is going to remain this evergreen franchise that's always on top is, I think, at best facetious. Like, it's just not going to happen. Grand Theft Auto is on the way out. It is getting outperformed by other superior gaming brands, and it's only a matter of time until those brands learn how to adapt and compete with something like Grand Theft Auto, until audiences start investing more time and energy into these other brands. And it's only a matter of time until something blows up and something becomes mainstream and something like surpasses Grand Theft Auto in relevancy. Now, it might be something that's better than Grand Theft Auto, like Pokemon or Mario Kart, or it could be something way worse. But there's no denying the fact that Grand Theft Auto is not going to remain on top forever. And I feel as if the Grand Theft Auto fan base is not prepared to deal with that eventuality. When that happens, Grand Theft Auto is not going to be relevant. It's not going to be talked about. It's going to go by the wayside, just like Driver before it. What we're going to see is games like The Wonderful 101 retain their relevancy long after Grand Theft Auto is long forgotten, because it is far more important in this industry to have a fun, engaging video game experience than to simply be the most popular.